So what is Conrad Murray's version of events? We know what his version of events was on June 25th, 2009. We know that from the paramedics and the UCLA personnel. Michael was dehydrated, he was tired, and he gave him lorazepam to help him sleep. And he witnessed the arrest. That's a medical term. What that means is you observe the person go down. Dr. Cooper talked about that. Other doctors talked about it. A witnessed arrest means just that. You witnessed the arrest. Well, that's Conrad Murray's version of June 25th. But of course, that version changed. Conrad Murray, from June 25th to June 27th, during that time, the police did not have contact with him. I think his attorneys say in the interview that they had instructed him not to return calls or something of that nature. You have the transcript and the recording. But an arrangement was made. I believe an attorney of Conrad Murray had called, and an arrangement was made to interview the defendant on June 27th, 2009 at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Marina del Rey. And you know from the recording and from the transcript that Conrad Murray was there, represented by his attorneys, Mr. Pena and Mr. Chernoff, that Detective Smith and Detective Martinez were there, and of course the defendant, Conrad Murray, was there. And at this stage of the investigation, the police knew very little. They did not have autopsy findings. They did not have toxicology findings. And as you know, the cause of death was not discovered until the toxicology findings were completed and disclosed. What they did know on June 25th is there was no sign of trauma, there was no obvious wounds, nothing to indicate any type of violent death by the hand of another. So they were essentially working in the dark. They were trying to gather information, they were awaiting toxicology reports, they were awaiting findings by the autopsy, by the coroner's office. And they sat down to listen to Conrad Murray, to listen to what he had to say, in the presence of both his lawyers. The detectives were not medically sophisticated. They did not know the terminology. They probably didn't know the proper follow-up questions. They sat, they listened, they asked questions, and they recorded what Conrad Murray chose to tell them on that day. And what we learn is that he was the personal physician to Michael Jackson, who was going to be going on the tour, that the recent care and treatment had began a little over 2 months prior to Michael Jackson's death, that he spent the night at Michael Jackson's house at least 6 nights a week, and that his purpose was to put Michael Jackson to sleep. The detectives ask, when they learn about these nightly doses of propofol, how frequently were these taking place? And Conrad Murray says, in response to the question, more than 10 times? Yes. More than 20 times? 30 days a month, roughly, every day. Those are Conrad Murray's words. He describes that he would give a bolus dose followed by a drip. He describes when he says that on June 25th he gave only 25 milligrams, that he typically gave more, but he gave half of that because of all the benzodiazepines on board. So he describes giving 50 milligram bolus doses followed by a drip in all the nights preceding. But for the night Michael died, and evidently just the night before, or maybe 2 nights before. But again, you have to evaluate Conrad Murray's statement in light of all the evidence as to what weight you give and how much truthfulness you find in these statements. But this is what Conrad Murray told the police on June 27th. Bolus doses followed by a drip. And then he describes a chronology of events of that very night. The IV in the leg to hydrate. The 10 milligram Valium pill sometime after 1 a.m., an oral pill. Said it was slow to act and Jackson needed to sleep. 2 a.m. he gives lorazepam, again according to Conrad Murray. This is intravenous. lorazepam. According to Conrad Murray, Jackson remained awake for at least an hour until 3 a.m. when for some reason Conrad Murray switches to midazolam. Again, 2 milligrams given intravenously. The only time Conrad Murray claims Michael slept was this about 12 minutes after the 3 a.m. midazolam injection. During this whole entire evening, according to Conrad Murray, this is the only time Michael Jackson slept, for about 12 minutes following the 3 a.m. midazolam injection. But at 3:20, he's awake, and he describes this continuing until 4:30 a.m.
So it was awake. It was 4:30 in the morning, and he was wide awake. And then he complained. I got to sleep, Dr. Conrad. I have these rehearsals to perform. I must be ready for the show in England. Tomorrow I will have to cancel my performance. I have to cancel my trip because, you know, I cannot function if I don't get the sleep.
So this is at 4:30 a.m. And Conrad Murray is saying that Michael's complaining. He's complaining that he can't sleep. He needs to sleep or he'll have to cancel. Michael is complaining. Those are Conrad Murray's words at 4:30 in the morning. So according to Conrad Murray, at 5 a.m., he gives 2 milligrams of lorazepam. At 7:30 a.m., he gives another 2 milligrams of midazolam. And again, as you go through the statement of Conrad Murray, Michael's still complaining. He's awake. Conrad Murray keeps saying he's complaining, that he cannot sleep, and that at 7:30 a.m. there's still no effect. Pieces together as you go through the evidence with Dr. White hypothesizing that at 7 a.m. Michael Jackson swallowed potentially 16 milligrams of lorazepam. Setting aside the fact that there's no science to discern whether Conrad Murray gave oral lorazepam pills or Michael Jackson swallowed them himself, setting aside that absolute complete speculation, if you accepted Dr. White's theory, at 7 a.m. Michael Jackson had just taken 16 milligrams of lorazepam. At 7:30 a.m., there's still no effect, and as you go through Conrad Murray's statement, there's no effect throughout. At 10 a.m., Jackson requests propofol. And now this is very important. At 10 a.m., according to Conrad Murray, Michael Jackson says he needs the milk, that it's the only thing that will allow him to sleep, and he needs the milk. And Conrad Murray comments on this in his interview.
I said, if you got propofol now, which of course he referred to as the milk, how much time, how much sleep you expect to have? You know, you're going to be needing to be up no later than noon. And he said, just make me sleep, doesn't matter what time I get. I thought what would happen to your rehearsals and your schedule for the day. He said, I can't function if I don't sleep. They'll have to cancel it, and I don't want them to cancel it, but they will have to cancel it. So I agreed at that time that I would switch over to the propofol.
Now think about that comment and that statement of Conrad Murray and what it reveals about Conrad Murray's intent. It's a very telling statement. His own words are that this is after 10 a.m. and he wants propofol. And Conrad Murray is not concerned, well, I'm going to give you 25 milligrams that will cause you to sleep for 5 or 7 minutes. Conrad Murray is concerned that he needs to be up no later than noon. If this is shortly after 10 a.m., that's potentially 2 hours into the future, and Conrad Murray's concerned, well, what about you need to be up at noon, not 5 to 7 minutes from now, noon. Having that concern in mind, it is only after Michael Jackson says, well, they'll have to cancel it. Because clearly what Michael Jackson is requesting, and clearly what Conrad Murray is intending on giving, if you believe this statement, is something that will cause him to sleep far past 12 o'clock. So it's only after Michael Jackson says they'll have to cancel it. In other words, I don't need to be up at noon. I can sleep past noon. That is when Conrad Murray says, so I agreed at that time that I would switch over to the propofol. Only after it had been agreed that the rehearsal would be canceled, Michael would not need to be up at noon. That shows what was taking place. Not an intent to put him in a light sleep for 5 minutes, but an intent, as Nurse Lee said, to knock him out. If you believe he was even awake at this time and not already knocked out as a result of the propofol being given by Conrad Murray. So at 10:40 a.m., according to Conrad Murray, in response to that dialogue that the rehearsal will be canceled, he doesn't need to be up at noon, he then wants you to believe that he just gave 25 milligrams diluted with lidocaine, enough that would put him down for about 5 to 7 minutes or thereabout. Slowly infused, Jackson goes to sleep. Following the administration of the propofol,
watch him for a long enough period that I felt comfortable. But then I needed to go to the bathroom. So I got up, went to the bathroom to release myself of the urine, and also consider getting rid of some of his urination that he had put in the jugs overnight. And then I came back to his bedside and I was stunned in the sense that he wasn't breathing.
he was gone for just 2 minutes. And when he came back, he finds Michael to be not breathing, but he checked the pulse oximeter, which displayed a heartbeat of 122. He additionally reached and checked Michael's femoral pulse. He felt a pulse, meaning that the heart was beating, but Michael was not breathing. This is the risk of propofol: airway obstruction, relaxation so that the tongue falls back and you stop breathing. That is why propofol administration, among a million other reasons, is so dangerous in this setting without the appropriate equipment. But by Conrad Murray's own words, Michael Jackson had stopped breathing but still had a heartbeat when he came back after just 2 minutes. And not only did he check it with the pulse oximeter, but he physically checked it as well. He does not call 911. And if you did not hear the audio of this as you sat in this trial, it would almost be completely unbelievable, the statements that Conrad Murray makes to justify his failure to do the most basic, the most common sense thing that we all learn as young children, that you call 911 immediately. He does not call 911 because to speak to a 911 operator would be to neglect Michael Jackson. To speak to a 911 operator was the only hope of Michael Jackson being revived to see another day. But Conrad Murray chose not to call 911 because Conrad Murray had other things on his mind, protecting Conrad Murray. So what does he do? He calls Michael Amir Williams. Does he ask Michael Amir Williams to call 911? No. He calls him at 12:12 p.m. We know he leaves a message on his phone. Setting aside all the other bizarre behavior on the part of Conrad Murray, setting everything else aside, he left a message on the voicemail. All he had to say was, call 911. We need a paramedic at Carrollwood. But he didn't say that. And he admits he didn't say that. I did not want him to. I couldn't ask him at that time to call 911 because he would want to know what it was about. And I have a patient that needs help, and I'm trying to assist. I'm trying to do it the best I can and try to get help. This is Conrad Murray's version of events prior to getting the voicemail recording and the phone records. You now know that Conrad Murray left a voicemail. Call me right away. Call me right away. He doesn't say call 911. Michael Amir Williams had no opportunity to ask questions if that was truly Conrad Murray's concern. He left a voicemail message. And he could have used that time to call 911. He should have used the time much earlier to call 911, but we know for a fact that at 12:12 he made this phone call to Michael Amir Williams and made no mention of 911 whatsoever. Because Conrad Murray knew what he had done. He knew what he had done. And he knew his acts killed Michael Jackson. Maybe he's panicked. Maybe he's still cleaning up.